Protein is now at Starbucks, and it's never tasted so good. You can add protein cold foam to your favorite drink or try one of our new protein lattes or matcha. Try it today at Starbucks.
Picture this, a curve in the road, a change in plans. Well, what do you say? With the all-new Audi Q3, the answer's always yes. Yes to adventure. Yes to escape. Yes to performance. Yes to comfort. Yes to right now. Because saying yes without hesitation, that's real luxury. The all-new Audi Q3, made for the yes life.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and, did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Good things come in fours, like ukulele strings, boy band members, and PayPal Pay in 4. No fees, no interest, no impact on your credit score. Just the flexibility to pay the way that works for you. Strum it, hum it, pay it in 4. Tap the banner to learn more. Subject to approval. Learn more at paypal.com/payin4. PayPal Inc. NMLS 910457.
You're listening to...
They're going to call it a hard foul. They're going to call it a hard foul.
All right, we're back for another episode of Hard Foul. Jayson Tatum seems like he's all the way back. Jaylen Brown is in MVP form, and the Celtics continue to roll. 4-1 over their last 5 with impressive wins in all 4, and maybe one clunker out there in Atlanta. Mike, we are Hard Foul. We're brought to you by the what?
The Fan First Sports Network. Excited to be here.
That's right. That's right. And I'm Jim Quigley. We are always excited to be here to talk Celtics basketball. Mike, they're rolling right now. You almost get you almost run out of positive things to say about this team, but you think this season can't get much better, and it just continues to turn, and you continue to see things that make you go, oh. I didn't know Jayson Tatum was going to look like this right now. I didn't know Neemias Queta was going to come this far along. I didn't know Jaylen Brown was going to continue to look like an MVP candidate when Tatum comes back. But here we are. This season, man, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sure has. And, I mean, their performance in Miami, they were just lights out. And Tatum just continues to look better and better. I mean, even on the road trip earlier in the trip, the game that Brown sat out, he was doing everything. And so I think at this point they have to look like the favorites in the East and real contenders for the NBA title. We have really, we've turned, we've made a big turn here, and it's time to really start thinking about matchups and having those fun conversations, because the Celtics are in the middle of it. They are one of the few teams that are favored to win the NBA Finals.
Yeah, we can talk about first-round matchups. We should. Maybe we could talk some off-season awards. I think Neemias Queta needs some consideration and most improved. But let's start here, because I think it's the most important development. The third quarter of the Minnesota game, I thought Tatum kind of showed some things that he, and I thought the issue was forced through Mazzulla. They ran the offense a lot through him, even with Brown on the floor. He had a really good quarter, not so much in the fourth, but neither did the Celtics. But there was a step in the right direction, it felt like. Oklahoma City, there was another step, and it felt like that was his best game. Then we move over to Charlotte. Jaylen Brown doesn't play. Tatum, 31, 33, 32 points, whatever it was. He was dishing out assists. Seemed very comfortable shooting the three. He seemed very comfortable going to the basket. His movement just seemed tighter. He was tighter with the basketball. It felt like at times during his comeback that was a little bit loose. And then, he gets a day off. And then last night, a triple double, 18 rebounds, 12 assists, still looked fluid scoring the ball. And he's, playing close to 40 minutes. This has really progressed at a rate that I did not expect. Um, and I don't think we've seen what we're used to being peak Jayson Tatum yet, but maybe they don't even need that because of the level that Jaylen Brown is playing at anyways. But man, he is better than I expected him to be, and this thing is moving quickly.
Yeah, 18 rebounds. I mean, the way he's rebounding the ball too, he's going up against bigs and having no problem. He looks like he doesn't look like somebody who's got an injury. That's for sure. The way he's
Yeah.
moving out there. Yeah, I would expect that we're going to see peak Jayson Tatum pretty soon. He's progressing at, yeah, I mean, like you said, nothing we've really seen before. And he's different. I know I mentioned it in the off season that he's one of those guys like a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan. They're just different. And that I said it'd be really hard for him to come back and do what he's doing, but I wouldn't be surprised by it. And here he is. He's doing it. Last night he looked great. I mean, his shooting is still, you know, it's still off. I mean, his percentages at the end of each game are pretty low, but man, he looks good out there, doesn't he?
He does, and I feel like they're starting to get better, and the looks are getting better. I don't know what his final shooting numbers were last night, but it didn't feel like he was struggling like he had in
Mm-hmm.
the past. A lot of his misses seem right on. He certainly shot the ball well in Charlotte. I and now they're in a spot too, and I want to talk about this Miami game because it was so much fun. So we'll get to that in just a minute. But they're in a spot where they're kind of playing out the string here. New York's not going to catch them. I know it's still a mathematical possibility, and there's a head-to-head still, but the all likelihood, you win the next two games, that race is pretty much over for the second seed. You you are in a position where you can, maybe give some good guys time off, continue to play Tatum, and have the offense run through him with different guys he's going to see out there in the playoffs, to continue to grow his game and get him more comfortable with the ball, and at the same time maybe get Jaylen Brown some nights off so he's well rested as we make this championship run. It's setting up very, very nicely for them. I mean, if these were must-win games, they wouldn't be able to do that. You would try to build Tatum back up, and at the same time, you're running your offense through what's worked all year through Jaylen Brown. But they're in a real spot now where they can maneuver this however they want, and to best get him and this team in position for the playoffs. It's really exciting. It's unbelievable that we're talking 10 months ago that this Achilles injury happened, or almost 11 months now, I guess. But this Achilles injury happened, and he looks like an all-star, and the numbers, prove it too. He's been a lot of statistical measures, the best individual defender since he's come back. He's been one of the best rebounders since he's come back. He's had great on-off numbers since he's come back. So a lot of the Tatum numbers that we're used to, that sometimes people miss, they're all right there in that 12-game span. He has more double-doubles already than a lot of all-stars in the NBA through just 12 games. So it's crazy. But here we are, and they're primed. They're primed to be in a really good spot.
Yeah, they are. And, I'd like to pick up their defense a little bit. The last two games was a bit shaky. Definitely in Atlanta, they weren't themselves defensively. And obviously last night, Miami, I think, scored 132 points. But, they're still leading the NBA in points per game, as far as holding opponents at about 107 points a game. They are primed. I think Gaza has certainly stepped into that backup center role where you feel a little bit more comfortable going into the playoffs with the way he's been playing. And you got Hauser and Shireman playing at high levels. And yeah, they're ready to go, man. Like we're ready to get the playoffs started. And I agree with you. Manage some of these players down the stretch. Um, Even though Joe might not, because you do get a break with the play-in tournament.
Yeah.
So I would suspect guys are still going to play, and maybe it's like those last 2 games of the season where guys sit out. But yeah, they're going to be. It looks like they're going to be healthy, knock on wood, and ready to go. And yeah, Jen, that's exciting. This is exciting time of year, and a lot more exciting than we thought it was going to be. So
Yeah, and that Miami game last night was fun. You're right. The defense wasn't up to par, but at the same time, it just felt like the Celtics were kind of playing with them. It was, Miami has multiple guys that the Celtics are very comfortable attacking defensively. That was pretty goddamn clear throughout the entire game. Obviously Tyler Hero, but I don't think they worry about Larson or really a lot of those guys where I think when Ware is in the game, their eyes get really, really big. Um, and
yeah,
so
Miami just has nobody that can defend.
no, and even when they do, it's what's his name they got from Toronto. He's just too small to defend the Celtics' bigger, wings. So they just kind of avoid Bam and were able to score at will whenever they want. I know Miami tried to get him with that zone, but that's a lot harder to do to the Celtics when you can just put Jayson Tatum on the nail and go to work. It was an unbelievable stat night, just all the way around. The
It
triple
sure
double for
was.
Tatum, 45 points for Brown. Nini's numbers were fantastic. Hauser and Pritchard both scored over 20 and felt like had open shots all game long, those two. Um, but the most impressive sequence of the game was the Derek White, he makes the great lob to Brown with about 1.7 seconds left on the clock at halftime. And then Miami has two guys wide open down the other end of the court, and he hustles down and contests. I think it was Jaquez's layup that forced a miss. And they're up 22 points, and he's doing that. He could have easily just walked into the locker room and said whatever. But, for a guy that's having
Yep.
his shots affected more than anyone else on the team right now, he only had 4 attempts last night. He was 3 for 4. Um,
Mhm.
he continues just to make winning plays all over the place all the time.
Yeah, I mean that hustle back last night was awesome. What were they up by, like 20 something, and he's
Yeah.
sprinting back at the end of the third quarter. Um, yeah, and I'm starting to rethink about our discussion with Vooch and um, Garza, and just going back, like I do think Garza might be more valuable to this team long term.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
definitely
he's
long term for sure.
developing at
Yeah,
this point, and
100%. Yeah.
and the way he's playing, I don't know if I don't know if it makes sense not to play him the minutes in the playoffs over Vucevic. I don't know if it makes sense anymore. He plays so hard out there, and their offensive rebounding has improved with him on the floor. I just don't I don't know. I don't know if it makes sense to force this guy into the games in the playoffs at maybe out of game shape because he's been hurt for a while now when you have this kid who's been really productive.
I agree with you. The only caveat I would say to that is the only way I think you would see a switch is if they start attacking Gaza in space with the ball, and he's not really great in drop coverage because he's not a super rim defender at all. So it's like you could see that in the playoffs where he gets played off the floor against certain teams and certain matchups. At least with Vooch is, and I think we saw that with a small sample, is he's actually a halfway decent rim defender. He's not, Nemi by any means, but he's a lot better than Gaza in that respect. So you can put him in drop coverage. You would still give up the jump shot, but the rim wouldn't be available. I think the problem with Gaza at this stage of his career against really good offensive talent is both is available. But maybe they can hide that. And if they can hide that, I think Hauser is giving you more in other places than we saw from Vooch in his short time here, for sure.
Yeah, so Jim, I have just a few more minutes left, and I got to get back to work. But how are you feeling about first round matchups as the playoffs started today? It looks like Toronto's in the seventh seed, so that 7-8 game in the play-in would be Toronto and Charlotte.
Yeah.
And so that's who you play. You're not going to play anybody in that 9-10 game, so it's either Toronto or Charlotte. And I don't think that the way things are looking, that Miami or Orlando are going to make it into that game. I think it's going to be between Charlotte, Philadelphia, and Toronto. Probably is your first round matchup.
What's the difference in games between like uh, Miami and Charlotte and
I mean,
Toronto?
between Miami and Charlotte and Orlando, it's just one game, but Miami and Orlando can't win. Like they just keep losing.
Yeah, that hasn't been
Um,
great. Um,
I mean, Orlando in their last 10 is 2-8. Miami's 2-8.
yeah, not great, not great. Yeah, I think obviously you'd want the Raptors. I'm not as fearful as Charlotte as other people are. I think they're kind of the Celtics mini me. And you look across the board, the Celtics top tier talent is just a lot better than their top tier talent. Maybe that won't be the case in a year or two when Brandon Miller, starts to fill out his body and gets stronger. And Knuple, becomes what he becomes. But I think as of today, does that mean Charlotte can't get a game or two? Of course not. Yeah, they can get a game or two. But obviously, my preference would be Toronto. I just don't think the Raptors match up against the Celtics at all,
At all.
at all. Um, but I don't think at the end of the day, when those series ends, we would be thinking, man, that was a really stressful series. I think Charlotte would be more difficult than other teams than they would be for the Celtics.
Yeah, Charlotte scares me because of Diabate in the middle. He can really disrupt you.
Yeah.
And the blowout in Boston, I feel like he was the reason why it was a blowout.
I thought Cato was much better against him down there.
Yeah, he was. Um, I think obviously it's Toronto. I mean, Philadelphia is an interesting team. Suddenly Embiid and Paul George are playing well. Uh,
Hmm.
I obviously you can't trust Embiid at all. Um, to be in shape in the playoffs, but I don't think that's who I'd want to get in the first round. You don't want to
Not
match
me
up
either.
against a team with all that talent, and especially with the way the Celtics struggle against Maxi, um, and that
Edgecombe.
VJ.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Those
um,
two guys scare me more than Embiid and George versus Celtics.
and like I would be pressed to think that the Sixers could take Cleveland or New York to 6 or 7 games or possibly win the series. So that'll be interesting. Same with Atlanta. I give the Sixers and Atlanta a chance in these series against New York and Cleveland. And right now, it looks like it's lined up as Celtics, New York 2-3. So having Tatum back for that series, payback, is something I think we'll all be looking for in the second round. But yeah, that first round series, I mean, obviously Toronto's the preference. Um, do you think Charlotte could give Detroit a run?
I guess it would depend on Cunningham's, health and availability. If he's at the top of his game, I think that Detroit team they're really mean and nasty to match his talent. And they went through this last year, where Charlotte hasn't been through it. I
Yeah.
think it could be a decent series, but I think Detroit would prevail. And I think Cunningham, if healthy, is by far and away the best player in that series. So I think that makes a big difference come playoff time. I still think there are opportunities to attack Charlotte defensively, even though they've been better. Obviously, Ball is one of them. I think Knuple in the playoffs, you can expose him a little bit more than he has been taking advantage of the regular season. So I would pick Detroit, but Charlotte could give him a nice run. That New York Philly series would be pretty interesting. I would pick New York there. But again, I think Philly could give them a fight. They had a great series, and I think it was only 5 games a couple of years ago, but every game was very competitive
It was a
and
7-game
excellent.
series.
Was it 7? Okay. Yeah, was
Yeah,
it
that's when the
7?
New York fans all went to Philadelphia during Game 7. There were more Knicks fans than Philly
Oh,
fans.
okay. Yeah, so that,
Yeah,
that I think that matchup would be, fun to watch. And then, who knows, I actually I poo-pooed Atlanta when you would talk about them before, Mike. I was really impressed with them in the loss to the Celtics. I thought in a lot of ways they outplayed Boston in that game, and Boston's talent just prevailed. Um, obviously down there it was one of the worst games of the Celtics had played in a long time, but Atlanta still, they're very, very good. They had another impressive win last night. I think they would give Cleveland that's you want me to pick an upset. That would be one I think I actually would pick. I think I would pick Atlanta over Cleveland in that series.
listen, I think Atlanta can beat everybody in the Eastern Conference. They have that like Indiana vibe to them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Certainly the
Yeah.
teams are better than them, but they can beat Cleveland in that first round. And, they just have, I mean, the way that Alexander Walker's playing, and he's playing at all-star level.
He really is. Yeah,
Um,
he's been great.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's been really good. And obviously Jaylen Johnson, they lack size, and you saw that Boston out-rebounded them by like 28 rebounds
Yeah.
in the game we beat them. We even in the loss to Atlanta, I think Boston had 8 more rebounds than Atlanta did. So that's their Achilles heel, and that certainly could show up against Cleveland. But if I was picking series right now, obviously I'd pick Detroit over Charlotte, but I do think it goes 6 or 7 games. I think Boston wipes the floor with Toronto. I don't know who to pick in Philly and New York, but I think it goes deep, and I'm picking Atlanta over Cleveland.
Yeah, I'd pick New York over Philly. I have a lot of trepidation about, especially guys with veterans. Well, yeah, you just tread above water, and then you kind of get healthy at the end, and oh, look at them now. I just don't think that ever works. It's hard. Like, can you find an example of that? Maybe that Celtics 2010 team that took Miami to 7, or was that 2012? Maybe that's the one example you can find. But outside of that, it's really hard to find examples of that working. So I would probably I would lean heavily on the Knicks in that series. But I'm with you. I think I'd take Atlanta over Cleveland. I just don't love Cleveland. I don't. They they just have never shown any urgency this year. Maybe for a minute when they picked up Harden at the deadline. Harden isn't a guy that screams urgency anyways, ever, except for when he wants to get traded or a new contract. So I just don't love that team. I think they're going to regret that trade at the end of the day. I still believe that. And a nice first round exit for them would be something I would enjoy.
All right, Jim. Well, I got to get off the call, so we'll do another pod soon.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Short one today. Short one, but we'll make it up to you. We'll see you.
It was a Muggsy Bogues size pod.
Yes, Muggsy Bogues size pod. Yep. Or Spud Webb. I like Spud Webb, but Muggsy was shorter. All right, we'll talk to everyone soon.
It's a Earl Boynton size pod.
Earl, yeah. All right. They're going to call the half hour part of the Fan First Sports Network. All production is done in-house, part of Get the Hell Off My Yard Productions.